Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. We're going to start. I am Principal Hollis, principal of David T. Howard Middle School, of course. Um, I have teachers and the assistant principal and counselor on, and our goal is just to let you get a taste of what curriculum will look like starting in August with your future RAMs. While we're giving a chance for people to get on, we're gonna start the slideshow with a little video, and then we'll come back on and introduce everyone. Okay, thank you for coming again. Again, my name is Takesha Hollis, principal here at David T. Howard, who will be hosting today's event. I want to introduce the sixth grade assistant principal, Miss Willingham, if you want to come off mute.
Good afternoon, families. Thank you for joining us.
And Miss Scott is our sixth grade counselor. A difference between middle and elementary is that there's an assistant principal and counselor for every grade level. And so all concerns don't come directly to me because we have more support because we have more kids. Miss Scott, did you want to say hello? Okay. Hearing nothing, Miss Scott. Okay, so we're going to move on. Today, we're going to introduce you to members of the team that are going to lead you through the different content information per content area. And we're just looking at our core content areas. So we have for ELA, Miss Hurt, then it will be followed by Miss Jackson for math, then Mr. England for social studies, and then Mr. Ford is going to handle science, which includes earth systems and earth science. Ms. Hurt?
And Rising Ram family. Is someone going to manage this or do I need to? Okay. All right. I am a language arts teacher. Oh, okay, they're moving it. All right, sorry. Technology. So you see here a QR code for the new ELA standards. So the way that the standards are arranged now is better for us because it provides a wealth of experiences and exposures in our core curriculum that integrates social and emotional learning. I think the new standards are more rigorous and have more depth. They are challenging and realistic in the time frame. So this is our first year, as you know, with the new standards, and children are engaged and challenged by the differences in the standards. Okay. Oh, they're doing it. Forgetting they're doing it. Assessments. Some things about our assessments are common practices that haven't changed, and then there are a few things that have been added. We have formative assessments that are in our curriculum. They are ongoing. We have weekly mini assessments. We have selection assessments, and we do have unit assessments. There are formal quizzes after each one of our selections and each one of our units, which I'll talk to you about the units in a moment. But lots of formative tests that let us know right away any challenges that students are experiencing, anything that we need to go over again. This coupled with our summative assessments, we've always traditionally had book projects. We have 2 this year as opposed to 4, just because of the rigor and girth of what we have to do in this new curriculum and getting students acclimated to the new curriculum. We thought it best that we didn't overwhelm students. So there are 2. Okay, I'll get that. So with RightScore, which you're all familiar with, I'm sure, it assesses student mastery of reading and writing. So even though standards have changed, RightScore is still a go-to to assess writing. We in 6th grade have been focused primarily on peer revision tasks. As it relates to RightScore, of course, that doesn't mean that we don't have writing. We still have writing assignments, we still assess writing, but formally RightScore is what we use. And unit assessments for each one of the units that we have in this new curriculum. There's a unit test at the end, which evaluates how they did as it applies to each one of the standards that was involved. And of course, the MAP growth testing that assesses the mastery of reading skills and standards, and also Lexile levels and other information that we need in order to frame our instruction. Okay, we're ready. All right. So as I said, the new HMH curriculum is here. It's newly adopted. This is our first year. There are things that I really like and am excited about with the curriculum, particularly because it's much more diverse than our former program. And we have lots of exposure to different types of reading. For example, the current unit that we're working on has historical fiction. It's surviving the unthinkable, and there are lots of survival stories. For example, there's a memoir that we're currently working on now that's a documentary from one of the, well, a memoir actually from one of the survivors of the Titanic. And then there was a documentary in the last section about one of the lost boys from South Sudan. So there are lots of experiences that students are exposed to that build social emotional learning. So it's not just stories that are haphazardly done, but they're intertwined with things that we want students to know. We want them to be engaged in things that impact their learning, but also their compassion, their ability to be aware of things that go on in the world, things that impact them. We also have Writable, which is a built-in writing program. It's built into HMH, and it's an opportunity for students to, well, teachers and students to gauge their writing. And then the genres, the normal fiction, nonfiction, poetry, drama, media, study. But as I said, which much more diversity and much more depth than we had previously. So we are excited about that. For example, as I said, the unit that we're working on now, Surviving the Unthinkable. What does it take to be a survivor?
I'm well aware. You've made this very clear.
I'm sorry. Hello? Okay, sorry. All right, Surviving the Unthinkable, clear. So, and then we have one more unit, Hidden Truths, what hidden truths about people in the world are revealed in stories, Finding Courage, Never Giving Up, Perseverance. And the first one was just Discovering Your Voice, which kind of was a springboard to all of the other units, because that allowed students to learn how to communicate and how to express themselves and their points of view.
Ms. Hart, you have a question in the chat. It asks, how many books should we expect our sixth graders to be reading in ELA over the course of the school year?
Formally, we have 2 that are tied to book report, but they should always be reading some type of book. As a matter of fact, the homework that's just ingrained is you should be reading at least 20 minutes per night. So it just depends on individual students. We don't give them a number of books. We give them the consistency of reading all of the time, weekly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think there was yeah, okay.
We are going to go to social studies next. Please.
All right, cool. So I'm Mr. Anglin. I'm one of the social studies teachers. So for sixth grade, we cover kind of 4 major regions. We'll start off talking about Europe, really hunkering down first semester to concentrate all about Europe, laying down those foundations for Gov, Econ, History, and Geography. Then our second semester, where you move into the other 3 regions, and we kind of speed up just a bit because we've already kind of laid that foundation, because most students are kind of exposed to a lot more with Europe, especially coming from elementary school with our world wars. All right, those are going to be our 4 big kind of topics, and we'll go through these each major unit. So with Europe, we'll start off with our geography, kind of going through some of the major countries, but we do like to include a lot more to talk about. Our history aspect is mainly the 1900s to today. We kind of do dive in a little bit further here and there, just again to lay a little bit more foundation. Then we'll go through government and economics, and those 4 trends are going to be with each of our regions. And then your students will also get that next year in 7th grade when they cover Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. All right, and this is kind of our layout. I kind of won't go through everything, but you kind of read through it as you will. Again, we start off with our European geography, then we'll kind of go through our world wars. Along with ELA, social studies does have a couple novels and a graphic novel that we will read to kind of go across curriculum to help build those skills. With Europe, we'll do Warhorse, which is a novel based in World War I. Then when we jump to Latin America, we'll, if time allows, we get to do Caminar, or like currently students are making their own news broadcasts. And then with Canada, we have a graphic novel. Then usually when we get to around Australia, depending on time, we kind of either do like a kind of final project to cover everything. But that'll be kind of our layout, and it kind of goes through the exact same themes each time. All right, and assessment-wise, all of our formative assessments are kind of your do nows. We have lots of different avenues that we use, especially getting a little game review going on. A lot of our summative assessments, we do have quizzes and tests that kind of in Mastery Connect that assess where they are. We do have a lot of projects we'll do throughout the entire year, so we're very project-based heavy. And then, of course, there will be a final exam that goes over the entire semester.
Hey everybody, I am Spence Ford. I am the 6th grade science lead. And so I'll be talking about both science classes that we offer. So we have Earth Science is the first, and then we have our systems class. And so the first slide is going to be what is covered in our 6th grade Earth Science class. So this is going to be, and once again, I'm not going to read them all either, so you can kind of peruse them, but we've got our 5 major units: our astronomy, oceanography, energy and resources, meteorology and hydrology, and geology. So if you go to the next slide, you're going to see a lot of similarities, but this is the Earth systems. These are the standards in the Earth systems class, and I'll talk to you in the next slide about what's different. But in this, you can see just the wording is changed. It's a lot of the same concepts. We still have meteorology in both. We still have geology in both. You still have astronomy. You still have kind of human impact, our environment. But how we cover that material, it's different. I'm seeing words like analyzing, discussing, constructing. So it's much more tied into processes in the systems course versus it's much more intertwined, and that will show up in our next slide about how are they similar and how are they different. So you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so the first thing, and I did talk to the other science teachers, what is something that we wanted to convey, and that is that in both classes, like this is an actual class now. We do have a lot of times when students come in, and depending on the elementary they came from, they weren't used to science being a full class. And it was kind of like sometimes what they got to do all the fun stuff if they had time. And you come into science here and it's, yeah, every day you have science for a full year and we cover lots of material. And that it's that initial challenge because it really throws some students and some of them struggle on the front end once they realize, okay, we have math, English, language arts, English, language arts, social studies, and science as full classes. So they definitely wanted me to remind you of that. Science fair is mandatory in 6th grade for all students. That is something that is pretty new, something that we started this year as part of our STEAM initiative. And so we start that right away. So they come in, they're learning 6th grade, they're learning science, they're getting everything together, and we start in with science fair. So that is something to kind of to be ready for. How is systems and science different? If you look over there on the side, you see middle school science and high school Earth systems. So yeah, if you don't know about this, systems is a high school course. And so when they come into a systems course, the expectation is that they are able to quickly be able to kind of grab onto material. They can make connections, very motivated. They're gonna have to work outside of school sometimes if they're not getting it in class because we're going too quickly, because it is a course that it's a literal high school course. So this would be, they're going from 5th grade to a class that could be taught to a senior in high school. In the second part there, it says assumes prior knowledge of middle school concepts. So both 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Now, I will say it is 6th grade heavy. It is a lot of geology and astronomy, but there's life science blended in there as well as physical science. So it's more challenging. There's more work. There's definitely more rigor to it. So that's something that you want to think about, when we're thinking about these classes next year, and something, your child, those are the expectations. So both classes are going to be very standards based. We're going to do a lot of work in all of them, but it is a different mindset in the systems course because it's a high school course. And then we can go to the next slide. Very similar to what we saw Mr. Anglin present in social studies. Our formatives are going to be our do nows, our exit tickets, our quizzes, Blockett's Kahoots, CFAs, and then summative. We're going to have we'll have a quiz. We kind of do like quiz test or 2 quizzes and a test. And we do that several times throughout the semester. And then we have our pre-test and post-test, final exams. No milestones for science or social studies. So in 6th grade, they have milestones for ELA and math, but they don't have them for science and they don't have them for social studies. So whenever milestones ends, a lot of times students are used to that's the end of the year, but definitely in science and social studies, and I think the same in math and ELA, we keep going until that last week of school, and that's finals week. If you have any questions, just if you'll put them in the chat, I'll be looking in there if you had any specific questions. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ms. Jackson. I am 6th grade math, and I will be going over the 6th grade math content as well as the accelerated 6-7 content. Okay, so some things that your student needs to know upon entering math next year, is that we really want them to be strong in their multiplication and division, so their fact fluency. We are also operating with all 4 operations, so subtraction, division, multiplication, addition, and we're doing that with multi-digit whole numbers. We're going to progress to decimals and things of that nature, so we want them to be strong in those areas. We also want them to have a general understanding of fractions and equivalent fractions, so we will be working with that on number lines and things of that nature with ratios and different things like that. So we really want them to have a strong understanding of fractions. So some of the units covered in 6th grade math are listed here. I won't go through them all, but again, a lot of them build on what they've learned in 5th grade, with the exception of a few. So, and just to name a few, like your statistics and your graphing rational numbers, those are some of the things, and let's see, expressions and equations and inequalities. Those are some of the units that are going to be a little bit newer to some of the students, where they're introduced to variables and they're understanding mean and mean absolute deviation, different things like that. So you might hear a few phrases, you might see them come home trying to understand a few concepts that they haven't gone over in elementary school, which is quite okay. But just kind of encourage your students that they don't have to come in knowing everything. They're going to learn it. All right. So these are some of the areas that you will definitely see. Some of it will be familiar, like I said, and some of it will be a little bit newer. But please make sure that they understand those, have a good understanding of those prerequisites listed in the previous slide. You can keep going. Now, the accelerated and the 6th grade math units are going to look alike in terms of, I mean, because accelerated has to go over 6th grade standards. So they're going to look alike in that regard. However, accelerated math goes into 7th grade standards. So if you take note of the little asterisks there, those are the different units that extend to the 7th grade standards. The 7th grade standards are taught after all of the 6th grade standards have been taught. Again, some of the things that the teachers on our team wanted us to emphasize was the need for students to come in and we actually monitor their progress instead of their actual scoring on a test or a quiz. We want to check for mastery of the concepts in terms of how far, I'm sorry, 1 second. Okay. In terms of, I'm sorry, I got lost. Oh, we want to master the concepts, but we check for mastery based on performance, like how have you progressed in this unit versus what your score is on this particular assessment. So they have to come in with the stamina. They have to come in knowing that this is a rigorous course and that the pacing is a lot fast. So you know your student, you know if they have the stamina to keep up with accelerated courses. So just keep that in mind, that it doesn't necessarily mean just extension, but they also have to do it at a rapid rate. Assessments, there are a lot of assessments that we use. Some of them are formal, some of them informal. There are homeworks, there are common formative assessments. We do class activities where we check for understanding, and there are also exit tickets. The ones that you will most likely see graded for sure are the quizzes and the unit test. Again, this is math, similar to ELA. It is also assessed from MAP, and it is assessed from the Georgia Milestones testing. Some of the helpful resources are Schoology. Everything is located there. Khan Academy is one that we use often. Delta Math, Paper, and IXL are also resources that we use. And Infinite Campus is where you can find a lot of the assessments, a lot of the assessment and assignments, grades, and things that you need to know for your students to see how they're progressing throughout the school year. Assignments are in Schoology. Does the math curriculum follow state IOPs? Yes, we do follow Georgia Department of Education and their IOPs, their pacing and all.
So one of the questions, and not for you, Ms. Jackson, was how do we help students to keep track of all these things? Schoology is our learning management system, and that is something they'll be introduced to next year when they get there, and they will use it as of right now through 12th grade. So that is a Midtown cluster decision where Howard and Midtown uses Schoology. So all of the agendas, notes, and things of that nature for the student will be in that resource. The resources that are here are resources that honestly would be useful in all of our content areas. Let me also say one thing about the difference between Schoology and Google Classroom is what you're probably accustomed to. Google Classroom is you only have the student login. In Schoology, we also send out a parent login in the first week. So parents can go in and see assignments, see what's missing, see what notes and PowerPoints that have been given to students to help them to study for the different classes. let's see. She answered the ILP question.
It says, what tech/curriculum will they use in math?
The district has adopted Carnegie, but we are still going to be heavily implementing the ILPs from the state as well.
And then the other question will be reviewed during this presentation.
Okay. So we're moving to gifted, where we will have either Dr. Griffith or Mr. Andre to go over that. They are our co-gifted liaisons for the school.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm Mr. Andre. I am the gifted lead teacher here at Howard Middle School. I worked with Mr. Griffith, Dr. Griffith. So a little bit of information about gifted, because it's probably different than the services that if your child is in GATE that you receive at the elementary school level. Here at Howard, all of our gifted students receive at least 2 gifted or GATE classes. In 6th grade, accelerated math and Earth Systems serve as GATE classes for math and science. We also have a GATE ELA and GATE Language Arts as well. Accelerated math and high school Earth, I already said that. Other GATE classes are enrichment, and they are not accelerated or advanced. So GATE Language Arts and GATE Social Studies move at the same speed as the gen ed classes, but there are enrichment opportunities in GATE Social Studies and GATE ELA. For accelerated math, those classes are moving at a faster pace. The difference in our GATE classes and general ed classes isn't really what's being taught. It's the strategies that are used in those classes, as well as, again, the enrichment opportunities for language arts and for social studies. I know I also teach 7th grade social studies. In my classes, we do a lot of PBLs. So you're gonna have more projects, more hands-on experiences with those classes. We don't have a pull-out model. So I know in elementary school, the GATE students are used to going into a different classroom and doing little projects and activities. The GATE services that you will receive here at Howard is going to be actually within your content area classes. One of the most common questions that we get here at Howard is, my child is GATE, why aren't they in accelerated math? Being in GATE doesn't necessarily guarantee your placement into accelerated math. There are different criteria that are used to place students into accelerated math. So, be aware of that if your child is identified as GATE, doesn't necessarily mean they're being placed into accelerated math. I think the MAP scores kind of determine placement for that throughout the year. And that's all I have for GATE. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via email, and we can set up a conference if you want, via telephone or Zoom.
All right, I'm Miss Scott. I'm the 6th grade counselor. So I'm going to go over the accelerated math and Earth Systems criteria. So you'll see here for accelerated math, the criteria changes depending on when your student is being looked at. So during the 5th grade year, students should earn a winter MAP RIT score of 230 or higher in order to meet the initial criteria for acceleration. And those letters should have already been provided to parents from your elementary schools for students that have already met that criteria for the course for next year. There's a second look in spring of 2026, which is the test that the kids will be taking soon. So the district will look at those scores, and we're looking for a 235 or higher. And the district will provide us with a list of students who meet based on these upcoming scores. And then the third look is going to be when they come fall. So fall 2026 is typically what we call second look, but now they're using that as a third look. That's when the students have already come to Howard. They may not have been placed in the course because they did not meet the first two, but the district will look at their scores when we take it, when we first arrive, when we get there, and they're looking for a score of 226 or higher. The district will provide us with the list of students who meet at that time, and then those schedules will be changed throughout the school year.
Before you go on to the science criteria, there have been some questions because this criteria for accelerated math has changed from last year. So if your student qualified in the winter map, then they are going to remain in the course. The second look is just to add additional students that did not qualify from the first look. And then that third look, when they are a Howard student, that again is to earn additional students placement into the course. So once they are in, they are in. It is not a means to take students out.
And typically throughout the year when we are taking MAP, we are continuing to monitor the student scores, and the district also monitors those scores as well. The Earth Systems criteria, again, that's a high school level course, and the criteria for that course is winter map reading percentile of 85% or higher. If there are more students that qualify than we have seats available, there will be a random selection process used to determine placement. If there are still remaining students that did not get in, then we will create a wait list for those students, and we give parents the opportunity to opt their child out of both the accelerated math and the high school Earth Systems course. If they opt out of Earth Systems criteria, then students that are on that wait list will then be moved into those courses. So again, that is the Earth Systems course is the only course where it's almost like that wait list system. These are the current connections courses that we offer. Students will take 2 connections courses each semester. If students have selected or did select band, orchestra, or chorus, those courses are considered our year-long courses. So they will take those courses both first semester and second semester. All of the other courses are not year-long courses. Your students were sent the course selection form via their counselor back in February. So the students were asked to fill out those selections. And we always just like to point out that the course requests are preferences and they're not guaranteed. So we do try our best to at least put them in one of the courses that they are interested in. So I do just want to note that. We also have Connections Math and Connections Reading courses that are based on MAP scores, and it is to help students who may have deficits in those subjects. And those students, based on their MAP scores, will be placed in either one of those courses, and those 2 courses are also another year-long course. Typically, for those students to be removed, there's a criteria based on their MAP scores for that as well. So this is the student support team. Our 504 and SST person is Dr. Sutton. This is her email. She will typically have 504 move-in meetings or transition meetings around April, May-ish, but she'll be reaching out to whoever supports at your school with 504s and any SST. And then for our IEPs, we have our ELT, who is Miss Scott. That is her email there. And that process is also the same. So students with IEPs, they also have a move-in process as well. We have teacher tutorials that are offered morning and afternoon. Students can sign up for any teacher's tutorial. It does not have to be their specific teacher. All we ask is that the student signs up 24 hours in advance. That way the teacher is aware that that student is coming. We also offer what's called Paper Tutorial, which is a platform that they can access through My Backpack. It is a free online tutorial service. It is available 24 hours per day. And one really good thing about it is that they're actually talking to a live person on the other end of the chat. That is also something that we monitor, and that they're able to provide us with the script of the conversations that the students are having. So we always like to encourage that, when students are using paper tutorial, that you remind them of, expectations. This is a live person. If anything happens during, those meetings that should not be happening, they do send that information over. Do we have anyone from any of our parent involvement organizations that would like to speak to this slide?
So all schools in APS have a Go team, and you participate in the Go team by being elected. But at Howard, which may not be the case at all of our feeder elementary schools, we have a PTO and a foundations. And the PTO and foundations live for different purposes. And, excuse me, on the website or in this reading, you can see how they serve the school. And under PTO lives our athletic booster. So athletic booster is there because we have a plethora of sports that we have shared and that are available to see on our website. Some of them are APS district sponsored, and others are club sponsored. And especially with the club sponsored sports, the booster helps to ensure that we have games and competitions with different people. We have coaches, and it also helps to raise money for various scholarship opportunities to pay those dues. If I have anyone from PTO or foundations that would like to speak more to your specific organization, you can come off mute and speak at this time.
I'm not seeing any of them in our participants list. Oh, Tony Moore is here. Probably as a parent.
He's here as a parent.
As
He's
a
no
parent, I
longer a
forgot.
parent right now, so he's not
Yeah.
involved in any of these organizations at this time. However, he was involved with PTO and with athletics specifically. As you consider how you would like to serve Howard, one option is to become a foundation's board member. And they wanted us to lift this slide to everyone. We're trying to have an open process this year to allow for a larger subset of parents to be able to apply if they're interested in serving in this capacity. So the information can be found through this QR code, or you can email any questions you have to the foundation board members listed on this slide.
Ms. Hollis, we did have a few questions in the chat that might be good for all. Someone asked about opting out of the accelerated courses. Once your child qualifies, if you choose to opt out, you can email Ms. Scott and myself. Someone asked about the year-long connections courses. Those are our music classes generally. I think the request is, what if they request it and don't get it? Typically, those courses are given. If hopefully that's the answer you're looking for, if I'm understanding the question. And then someone said, teachers for each subject, can you provide an estimate of how many hours of homework per week we should expect for our 6th grader? Leads, if you could just pop out and share that.
I can speak for social studies. Really for homework, what we do with social studies is they will have a sheet that is given to them on a Tuesday. Typically, we'll post it in Schoology by that Monday, and it'll cover everything that we're going to be talking about for the entire week. So we usually give it out on Tuesday, and it's not due until Friday. And usually the only extra homework they would have on top of that is they're not really getting what they should be done in the classroom.
The same is for math. Typically there is a homework assigned at the beginning of the week on Monday, and it is due back Friday. That is typically what they will have, aside from like IXLs and different Delta math things that are there for support.
I put it in the chat, but for science, try to do everything in class. But sometimes if you don't finish it in class, it might carry over to the next day, or it might be finishing up for at home. And then of course, individuals might have to study more outside of class, but that would be on an individual basis. You are more likely to have homework for systems and science, but not a lot is specifically assigned. So there's not anything for a particular week. I will say the one thing that does require a lot of outside time is the science fair projects. That is not an in-class activity. So that is typically done almost exclusively outside of school. We do have check-ins and along the way for students, but most of that is outside of school. And so that's a lot of the first 3 months of school.
Can I add to that, Mr. Ford? Moving forward with science fair next year, we'll have tutorial days before and after school to assist with science fair for students who need any extra support.
For ELA, it's typically the same. It's usually work that needs to be finished in class unless it is a book project, but they do heavily use IXL skill plans as well. So it's usually IXL or something to do for their book project, since that is an independent assignment.
The question in the chat around letters to let you know whether or not you made it into the course. Traditionally, we do not send home letters because everyone who has met that RIT score for math does not need a letter. You would just be scheduled. And so the evidence would show when the schedule was released in July. As far as the the Earth Systems High School course, we normally send letters if we don't have enough seats. And if any letters are going home, we would have to finish the spring map administration before we could send anything, and have enough time for the data to come from the elementary schools to the high school space. So you're looking more like May, late April for any of that communication. So look at it more like no news is good news. We are having to come through data for 400 students to ensure that they have met those qualifications. So registration open March 2nd, And all students must complete this annual update, is what we call it now. And that would include ensuring that you have all of your documentation that's necessary. You need to go through Parent Portal to do so. Please note that you will run the risk of not having a full schedule if we delay this process. So earlier the better, sooner the better. Our school registrar's name is Miss Martin Walton, and I think the generic email address to contact her for any registration questions is there. So feel free to contact her so that she can answer any questions that you may have about registration.
All right, we already had a few questions about this. Here are our upcoming Rising Realms events with our Summer Bridge program and our dates, as well as our Fun on the Field, which is happening in April. Go ahead, Ms. Scott.
I was just gonna explain those slides. That was it.
Okay. Hopefully you guys can make it out to the Fun on the Field event. It's a fun time. It's like a big play date. Students are able to meet new friends, acquaint themselves with old friends, and it's a good time for parents as well. We typically have some food trucks, music, some games, and yeah, it's just an open time to come and orient yourself with Howard. And we typically have PTO selling swag and a couple of other information tables. And Ms. Scott, you want to speak to Summer Bridge?
Yeah, so Summer Bridge is 2 half days from 9 to 12. The purpose of Summer Bridge is to really help the students begin that transition. The students will learn a little bit about the curriculums. They will also have some team building activities that they will be able to participate in. And we do things like helping them with lockers. We give them tours around the building. It is since I've been here, I have seen that students who participate in Summer Bridge typically come a little bit more prepared. They're not as nervous. The transition is a little bit easier because they've kind of already experienced that space. So we definitely encourage you all, to sign up. I think our limit is 100 students. So we definitely encourage you to sign up for Summer Bridge if that's something that your scholar can make. There was a question about athletic sessions afternoon after Summer Bridge. I think that's something typically that our athletic director, Coach Abernathy, hosts. Ms. Willingham, has he shared that he will continue that this summer?
Yes, he plans on continuing that this summer. And so once we have the information from him and we have our registered group of students, we will send that out. And he typically also will put information on the website. I do see the message about the QR code is not working, and I'll drop the link. Just give me 1 second.
There was a question just in regards to transitioning. What can students do to kind of ease that transition besides Summer Bridge? I think one of the biggest things is really being open to new friendships. A lot of times when our students come, of course, they're coming from maybe one of our largest feeder school has maybe like 120 students versus coming to a space of 400 students and going from seeing, your classmates every day versus maybe not having a class with anyone who went to your elementary school. So just being open to making those new friendships. There's also, we also have student ambassadors that we call Rambassadors. That is a group of students that we select based on application process to kind of help students. We encourage them to get involved, get active, join some type of club, a sport. There's something at Howard for everyone. So we encourage them to definitely get active. And just, being open, understanding that change is going to, change is going to happen throughout those first couple of months for sure. So this is, if you need to contact us, we have our administration team. So Principal Hollis, and then our 6th grade assistant principal is Willingham. I'm Ms. Scott, the 6th grade counselor. You also have our grade level chair, Mr. Anglin's email there. Our PTO, who is over Rising Rams, is going to be Miss Sarah Korth. You can contact her through the email that's provided. And then if you have not already, please, please, please go ahead and get connected with our social media pages, the Rams report that PTO provides, sign up for Summer Bridge. We have been doing great things on Facebook, Instagram, and X. So if you have not already, go ahead and sign up for those things to stay connected, to see all of the wonderful things that we're doing at Howard.
Do we have any last minute questions? We have dropped the link to register for Summer Bridge in the chat. We will also share the flyer. Yes, Summer Bridge is first come, first serve basis. It's not a lottery, it's first come, first serve. Please, please, please be available on both days. As Ms. Scott mentioned, we find that our students that are able to attend for both days, they seem to have a smoother transition. We will also share the flyer with our elementary feeder schools as well as post it on the site. I also do want to stress that transition from one grade band to the next is always a little difficult. So it's not that unusual that the transition to middle school is, it's a transition. So it can be a little bit, I don't want to say rough. It's a transition. So a lot of things are expected. The 6th grade team, we are used to this, we expect it, and I think we do a pretty good job with managing it.
And as Mr. Ford said, because we are so familiar with this transition, we're gonna help the students.
Mm-hmm.
They have their teachers, they have myself, Ms. Willingham, Principal Hollis. They have other support team members that will also be there to also assist as well. I don't want you all to think that if the student does not come to Summer Bridge, then they will not get those same experiences. We help students with their lockers. We're, making sure that they know how to get to and from all of their classes. We make sure that they know how to read their schedules. We do all of those things the first couple of days of school. So we definitely make sure that our students are acclimated when they arrive.
Someone asked about when will schedules be visible. They are visible during open house. I don't have that date off the top of my head, but it's usually the day before the first day of school. And the district has open house on the same day for all grade bands.
There is a question, and I also received a question earlier in terms of how will we disseminate the recording, or where will the recording be placed for those who need to view it?
So the link to Summer Bridge is a little bit, it's in the chat, but I'll drop it again. I don't have an immediate answer to how we will be sharing or if we will be sharing. I will have to speak with Ms. Hollis regarding that. But we will share the flyer, the Summer Bridge flyer, with the elementary. We'll send it through counselors, the elementary counselors for the feeders, And again, the link to register, I've just put it in the chat once again. It'll also be visible on our website. Do we have any more questions? Okay, well, hopefully you have found this presentation to be helpful and help ease your angst as it pertains to this transition. Is it easy to find the registration info in Infinite Campus? It will be their schedule in terms of if you're registering or the schedule.
It should be easy for you to find that in Infinite Campus. It's just that annual update. However, you can reach out to your current registrar at your elementary school and they'll be able to assist you with that process as well.
All right, well, we look forward to seeing you all at Fun on the Field in April. And if we don't have any more questions, we are going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all for joining us.